Hey guys, welcome back to my channel McNallie Money, home of all things stock, investment, and personal finance related. Now today we've got a really interesting video for you. This was actually a subscriber request. The company we're looking at is called Lowell Farms, and it's involved in the MJ space in the United States. It's a huge cultivator, and they've got a ton of exciting things happening at this company, including recent Q1 numbers and some big news and recent announcements. So I'm going to take you through their business model. We're going to do a deep dive on the company. It is a little bit longer video, but I promise you it's worth the watch. Now, a couple housekeeping things before we get into it. Please take a second to check out the BlockFI link below. If you're sitting on any cryptocurrency, this is a great way to earn interest on your crypto while it sits there. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, McNallie Money, please take a second to do so. We just crossed that 1100 subscriber milestone, so I'm super pumped up about the channel's growth. Take a second to smash that like button. It's 100% free to do. It takes a second of your time and it really helps me out. And leave a comment in the section below on what you think of this analysis, Lowell Farms, and the MJ industry as a whole. Now without further ado, let's roll the intro clip and jump into today's video. Okay guys, so that's right. Today we're going to be talking about Lowell Farms Incorporated. Now this is really exciting for me. This was a subscriber request, so I didn't know anything about this company until I started doing my research or my due diligence for this video. And I really like what I see here. They've got a huge presence in the United States. This company is primarily a grower or cultivator of MJ, but they're branching out and they're starting to sell some branded products. Now they've got a huge focus in California, but they are branching out into other areas of the United States. Obviously, as many of you know who follow this channel regularly, I'm extremely bullish on the MJ sector in the United States over the next 6, 12, 18 months. And I think Lowell Farms is very well positioned to capitalize on that growth. Now this company just reported Q1 earnings that we're going to talk about towards the end of the video, but they did stumble a little bit this year in terms of their overall revenue quarter over quarter. And I think this might provide a very good buying opportunity if you're looking to get involved with Lowell Farms. So here I have it up on the Canadian exchange, and you can see as of close on Friday last week, they were down 3.4%, which equates to 5 cents for a close of $1.42 Canadian. Now, over the past 6 months, this company has essentially traded flat. As of November 2020, it was trading in the $1.60, $1.70 range. So they haven't really done a lot over the past 6 months. And as mentioned, I think that's because some of those mixed revenue results, which we're going to look at in a little bit more detail throughout the presentation. Now, if you pull out to a 1-year chart, you can see this company has had some strong performance. So it was trading back under $1, around 66 cents Canadian in June of 2020. It reached a high in February of $2.45, and it's now sitting kind of in the middle of those two numbers. We saw strength in this entire sector in early to mid-February, so it's not a surprise it's pulled back a little bit from there, as a lot of the companies we talk about on this channel have done a very similar type of thing. Now on the Canadian side, the ticker for this company is LOWL, and they do also trade on the pinks in the United States under ticker symbol LOWLF. So I wanted to call that out for those of you who are watching from the United States if you're looking to get exposure into this company. Now on the US side of things, they're trading at $1.14, so obviously that's adjusted for currency or Forex differences. Now I'm going to jump back to the Canadian exchange for a second here. I did want to talk about market cap. So they show a market cap of $82 million Canadian on Yahoo Finance. On a fully diluted basis, this company has about 250, 260 million shares outstanding. So if you do the math on that, I'm getting a market cap of closer to $355 or $360 million Canadian. So I did want to call that out because we're going to see some numbers later in the presentation that refer to a much higher market cap. So I just wanted to explain that in advance for you guys. So as you can see by the number of tabs I have open here, this is going to be a very full video, so we're going to move fairly quickly. I'm going to give you an overview of the Lowell Farms company, what they do, their operations, their products. Then we're going to look at their most recent quarterly results and talk about some news that just came out for this company, along with my price prediction moving forward. So to kick things off, I wanted to show you guys their logo or their company brand. I personally am a huge fan fan of this. I think it really grabs people's attention. And towards the end of the video, we're going to look at their social media presence and following. And I think this logo is a huge part of this company's brand identity and success with social media. So I wanted to call that out and show this first and foremost for those of you who aren't familiar with the brand or the company logo itself. Now, in terms of the history of Lowell Farms and what this company does, they've been around since 1909, so over 100 years, and they started out growing what they call Indian hemp on their farm, which was located on the central coast of California. Now, as we scroll down and get a little bit more recent here, the pledge, or this company's mission statement: our family of farms grows artisan craft MJ with a deep love and respect for the plant. We use sustainable and natural materials from seed to sale. And you're going to see that as we move through the presentation. This company has very unique branding, and it really leverages that grassroots or traditional look and feel for their packaging and their products alike. So this was very eye-catching, very different than what we've seen with a lot of the more recent modern kind of branding in the MJ space. So stay tuned for that towards the middle to end of presentation here. So one thing I need to call out before we move any further into the presentation, Lowell Farms actually just underwent an acquisition by Indus Holdings Inc. So they've actually rebranded this company and combined the two entities under the Lowell Farms Inc. name. So if you're following Indus over the past couple of months, just be aware that these two companies have now combined as of March 5th, and they're both operating under this Lowell Farms banner moving forward. Now, in terms of what Lowell Farms actually does, they're really focused on scaling their cultivation facilities and becoming one of the biggest, if not the biggest, producer of MJ flower in the United States. So I thought this slide was really interesting. It gives a great high-level snapshot or overview of the company. Now you can see on the left here are some of the highlights or the mission of this company overall. So currently focused on California, we're going to see a news report at the end of the video here that talks about some expansion into other states as well, but primarily focused on California on the West Coast. They're looking to lead the industry through the scale of their operation and the brand portfolio that they've put together. They want to consolidate the supply side of the industry and really focus on building that overall capacity. They already have and plan to build more large-scale cultivation facilities, looking to differentiate their brand and actively preparing for federal legalization. So this really caught my eye, and obviously a lot of companies in this space are really trying to time this and line things up now so they can hit the ground running if and when Biden decides to pull the trigger and make MJ legal across the United States. Now on the right here is some of their financial metrics. Now be aware, this is from February 26th, so these numbers are a little bit outdated. Their share price at that time was trading close to $2 US, and this is where you can see that market cap of almost $500 million US. So I wanted to call that out because number one, their share price has retreated a lot from these levels, and the market cap shown on Yahoo Finance is drastically different than what you see here based on their fully diluted shares outstanding of about 250 million. So that's one thing to be aware of. I got really excited when I looked at the market cap under 100 million Canadian, and as I read through this presentation, I had to take a second look because the company does have a lot of shares in the option and warrant realm that do add to that overall market cap for Lowell Farms. So now we're going to really start talking about what they coin as the new Lowell Farms post-merger and how they're going to achieve some of those big mission statements and goals we saw in the last slide. So cultivation at massive scale, growing organic, high quality flower. So again, we see organic here, similar to what we saw with T-God. They currently have a 225,000 square foot greenhouse in operation, so an absolutely massive facility compared to a lot of the companies that we've reviewed recently. They're also planning for an additional 300,000 square foot greenhouse. So again, you can see these guys are really going after that scale, that size, and that overall footprint for their operation. Further expansion plans to reach total greenhouse or canopy space in excess of 1.5 million square feet. So this really will make them one of the largest cultivators or growers of MJ in the entire country if they're able to scale and build these facilities out as they are currently talking about or planning. Now, in addition to their cultivation facilities, they've got diversified manufacturing capabilities and infrastructure spanning all different product categories. So we're going to look at their brand portfolio, their packaging, and some of the different products they offer, but very interesting, very eye-catching, and very unique for this industry. They then talk about their brand awareness with unparalleled reach and accessibility. So we're going to look at their social media account, but they've got a ton of followers on there and really active and engaged customer base for this company. And then finally, they talk about their distribution model, which they're really going to leverage a hub and spoke delivery system or infrastructure that's intended to service 85% or more of the dispensaries in the state of California. So this slide was definitely interesting. It doesn't necessarily talk about Lowell Farms specifically, but it really does give some good stats on the overall market in the United States and how fragmented the MJ space currently is. So if we scroll down here, you can see there's 4 categories: cultivation, processing and manufacturing, distribution, and retail. Now, Lowell Farms is really focused on the first 3. They're not actively pursuing a lot of retail opportunities, which is fine. They feel like that space is maybe a little bit too crowded or too competitive, and they really want to focus on their core competencies here. But in terms of cultivation, they give some phenomenal stats. So in terms of outdoor grows, there's currently 950 operators in the United States with over 16 million square feet of canopy or growing space. Now, in terms of greenhouses, there's approximately 1,200 operators with just over 17 million square feet of canopy. So there's actually more greenhouse space than outdoor currently grown in the United States. And then in terms of indoor, there's about 500 operators with 4 million square feet of canopy. Now, as many of you know, I'm not overly bullish on the cultivation side of the MJ industry right now because exactly as these numbers show, I feel like there's very low barriers of entry and a lot of people are going to be moving into this space as their entry point into the MJ industry overall. So before you get into things like extraction, processing, manufacturing, CPG, a lot of companies really start off in the cultivation space. And once federal legalization comes online, I expect the square footage of canopy to absolutely blow up in the United States. So that's one thing to be aware of, but it really does paint an interesting picture of how many different operators and how competitive this vertical or this space really is. Now, moving along into the processing and manufacturing, this is really where a lot of the companies I invest in, specifically Valens and Tilt, operate. And this is the vertical within this industry where I feel like there's going to be the most growth. So I'm happy to see that Lowell Farms is actively involved in this space. Now, there's currently about 950 licensed operators, so you can see the total number of operators in this vertical is much lower than the cultivation space. And once you start getting down into the edibles like gummies, beverages, chocolates, you can see that there's under 50 operators, so a lot less competition. And I think this is where a lot of the sales opportunity is really going to lie once the market becomes a little bit more mature and people's buying behaviors and taste for these type of products begins to shift. Now, in terms of distribution, so sales, distribution, and collection, right now there's just a handful of independent distributors, of which Lowell is one, and a lot of brands are currently self-distributing their products, which, as we know, is very inefficient, especially for a country of this size. A number of retail locations currently in operation. And that segues perfectly into the retail banner here. So you can see there's currently over 660 licensed retail dispensaries and over 300 licensed non-storefront dispensaries. So about 1,000 total between the two. And that's what makes self-distribution so difficult for a lot of these companies. So now we're going to double click on the cultivation vertical, specifically in California. So Lowell Farms feels like the state of California is the perfect spot to set up their operations and produce MJ on a major scale. This is the home of MJ in America, and it provides the perfect opportunity to build brand loyalty and awareness. Now, as we saw in the last slide, the cultivation supply is very fragmented. Average players are very small with much higher cost structures. There's over 2,500 growers with an average canopy space of 19,000 square feet. So these are very small scale facilities when you look at the 300,000 square foot operations that Lowell Farms is looking to run. And that's where they feel they really have a competitive advantage. Now, they do call out the black market. Obviously, that's still a factor in the MJ space, but it really is ineffective in competing for the Californian customer because the quality and, most importantly, the consistency really can't compare to these regulated and legal grows. Now, one point that's interesting here, and we don't really talk about a lot, is how the regulatory pressure can actually be a burden on a lot of these subscale or small operators. So I've spent a lot of time talking about my bullish thesis in terms of US regulation and legalization, but for some of these small scale operators, the changing legal landscape can really be difficult to navigate and expensive in the form of legal fees. So overall, Lowell Farms feels as legalization comes more into focus in the United States, investors and consumers are increasingly going to accept the pivotal role that California cultivation will play over the long term. So that's really where they're investing their time and energy to set up their foundation moving forward. So continuing along the cultivation theme, this is Lowell Farms' existing greenhouse facility. So this is the 220,000 square foot retrofitted greenhouse, which is located in Monterey County, California. It has numerous facility upgrades, which have allowed them to really improve and increase their output capacity. And they have targeted levels of 10,000 plus pounds of flower every single quarter. So over 40,000 pounds of flower or final product coming out of this facility each year. Now, one thing I'll mention here, you guys, although this is an indoor greenhouse facility, these plants are very fragile and they're still susceptible to the external air quality in the region here. So we're going to talk about their earnings report towards the end of the video. And they actually call out some of the California wildfires as stressors on these plants. So I just wanted to make that distinction that even though this is a greenhouse facility, the air quality and the overall health of the plants is really dependent on the ecosystem that this facility operates in Monterey County. So this slide now talks about Lowell Farms' plans for expansion and consolidate some of this canopy space in Monterey County. So right now, there's over 4 million square feet of canopy in this area, and they're actually in discussion with several different companies to start assuming control of their property. So their plan is to add canopy space in the form of new facilities under lease, invest in facilities to increase yield and quality. So they're estimating a CapEx spend or capital expenditure of about $30 to $60 per square foot that they acquire or lease. Centralized core functions, which include nursery, drying, and trimming. So they're really going to try and expand their canopy footprint, but they're going to centralize and consolidate some of these more standard processes and bring a wide genetic variety to the market. And that's really going to build their brand portfolio. Now, the statement at the bottom here is extremely bold. And out of the entire presentation, this is what caught my attention more than anything else. So within the next 12 months, Lowell intends to be the largest producer of MJ within the country, so in all of the United States, and we won't need to leave the country to do it. So again, they're really adamant about growing MJ within the United States itself, and they feel like California is the perfect place to do that. So now that we've talked about their cultivation facility and their growth plans in that area, I wanted to shift gears and start looking at their manufacturing capabilities, their product lineup, and the different brand portfolio that they've assembled. So in terms of the products they offer, they're listed here on the left. So they have jarred flower, pre-rolls, edibles, vape products, and concentrates. So very well diversified across the different product formats. And on the right here, you can see their brand portfolio, which currently includes Chula, the Lowell Herb Co., Kaizen, Moon, which is really focused on the edibles, House, and Original Pot. So again, very similar to a lot of the other operators we've reviewed on this channel, but Lowell Farms has chosen to have a number of different brands in their lineup to appeal to different segments of the market and different consumer tastes. So this is where it really gets interesting here, you guys. We're going to take a look at some of their different product offerings, and you can immediately see how this company has differentiated itself from anyone else in this space. So in terms of flower, we're looking at 3 different products here. There's their classic 3.5 gram package of pre-rolls. There's their jarred flower, which comes again in a 3.5 gram serving. And then there's their individual 1 gram pre-roll joints. Now, I'm a huge fan of the look of these products and the small things this company's done to really differentiate themselves. So whether it's the lid of the jar here, the matches that are included in the pre-roll package, so you can see whether it's the individual joint or the pack, you get matches that come along with it. And it really is a top shelf or top quality product for the end consumer. And that's why I think customer engagement with this brand is so high compared to a lot of the others that we've looked at. Now moving along here, this is their concentrate offering. So they have rechargeable vapes, 510 cartridges, infused smokes, Lowell darts, which is essentially a rosin extract, and then bubble hash, full melt hash, age cured rosin, and live rosin. So again, very wide product offering, and you can see the look and feel of these concentrates is very on brand compared to their flower offering, and really does give that nostalgic feel of a company that's been around for over 100 years. Now moving into the edibles space, this is where some of their other brands really come to life. So you can see the Moon Mints here, Original Pot Co. baked goods. So these are actually baked cookies infused with MJ. They have the Chula gummy lineup and then their Moon chocolates. So if we jump back to the market overview slide here, you can see that Lowell Farms operates in all of these different segments outside of the beverage brands. And this is really where I feel like this company's growth is going to come from, in addition to that large-scale cultivation capacity, specifically the chocolate and gummy brands where there's very few operators currently in existence. So now that we've talked about their brand portfolio and the different products and packaging that Lowell Farms offers, I wanted to share with you guys their Instagram account and their social media stats. So you can actually see Lowell Farms has nearly 180,000 followers on Instagram. Here's their logo once again, and I think that really resonates with customers. And on the right-hand side here, you can see their social audience. So outside of Cookies and True Leaf, Lowell actually has the strongest brand following of any of these different MJ operators in the United States. They have over 1 million weekly impressions across all of their different social media platforms. They have 3 million impressions on YouTube alone, and their total audience is up nearly 70% year over year, while engagement is up 132%. So that's exactly what you want here, you guys, moving into federal legalization, is customers interacting with your brand, sharing their stories and experience with other people in their circles, and really talking about your company and getting it to become a household name to set you up for future growth. Now, two of the other companies I've talked about on this channel are Cresco Labs and Planet 13, and you can see that their social media following doesn't even compare to what Lowell Farms has been able to create. So moving along to distribution, I wanted to give you guys a little bit more detail on their actual facility. So this is an 18,000 square foot space. All distribution related inventory activity is in the same building and under one roof, which includes post-compliance labeling, retail flower packing, finished good inventory, order picking, packing, and delivery loading. So again, they've consolidated this into one spot, which really gives them efficiency and scale here. They have a fleet of 22 delivery vans, allowing for regular maintenance rotation and upkeep, meaning they never have any downtime. They've also got flexible delivery routes. They allow for bulk deliveries and inventory pickups and transfers. Now, they currently have 19 different optimized delivery routes across California, 10 in North California, 9 in SoCal or South California, for maximum efficiency with 10 daily routes that are eligible for next day delivery. So overall, you guys, that gives them the capacity for 152 B2B or business to business deliveries each and every day. And that's one of the benefits of really focusing on California and that single state to start out. Because the population is so huge, they can really access a massive portion of the US market and the retail locations by really mastering their operations in this one state alone. So to close things out here, you guys, I wanted to talk about Lowell Farms financials because at the end of the day, numbers really do talk. Now, what's interesting here, if you look at the net revenue line, you can see the performance over the last 4 quarters. So they really had flat revenue in Q1 and Q2 of 2020. We then saw a pretty healthy jump of about 40% in Q3. And then what was concerning, and what I mentioned at the start of this presentation, was actual revenue decline between Q3 and Q4. So revenue actually dropped by about $5 million down to 9.2 million US, and that's actually below what we saw in Q1 and Q2 of 2020. So that was really concerning here. They also recorded an adjusted EBITDA loss after a profit in Q3, and their adjusted gross margin fell dramatically from 41% to 8%. So understandably, that really spooked investors here, you guys. Now we're going to talk about the reasons why revenue declined so dramatically, but I think as a potential investor in this company, this is really a blessing or a gift because it really allowed the share price to come back down to a level that I feel a lot better at buying in at or paying for this company at this point in time. So I'm looking at this as a potential opportunity, but for a lot of people, when you're talking about a growth industry like MJ and you then see quarter over quarter revenue decreases, it's a huge red flag. Now, one quick note before we jump into their Q1 earnings, I wanted to show their total revenue capacity or revenue projections based on Lowell Farms' estimated annual production capacity upon completion of their current expansion phase. So as mentioned, the facility they currently operate could produce around 40 to 45,000 pounds of flour annually. Now that flour would then be manufactured into sellable flour, pre-roll flour, and fresh frozen flour, which would then make its way onto shelves in the form of packaged flour in the jars that we saw, individual and packaged pre-rolls, and live resin vapes and live resin vape concentrates. So that's actually how the flour flows through the value chain, and they forecast annual revenue capacity of about $65 million from the flower itself. Now, in addition to the flower, you also get trim off these plants, which they expect to be around 25 to 30,000 pounds annually. The trim can be used to make dry concentrate and distillate, and that would actually make its way onto shelves in the form of vape cartridges and concentrates, and edibles and topicals, so creams, gels, gummies, chocolates, that type of thing. So Lowell Farms expects, in addition to the $65 million here, they could generate around $40 million of revenue from the trim division annually. So between the two, about $105 million of revenue in US dollars if this company is able to scale and get up to full capacity at these production facilities. So obviously a long way from the $40 to $45 million of revenue that we saw in 2020. So now I wanted to talk about their first quarter results of 2021. So this report came out 13 days ago, and I'm just going to go over some of the highlights here for you guys because we really are starting to see some growth. So revenue generated for the 3-month period came in at $11 million. This is in US dollars. So they have turned around that revenue profile and they've now shifted back into a growth mode. So that was a 17% increase over Q1 of 2020 and a 20% increase over Q4, which is really that stumbling point we talked about. They still had an adjusted EBITDA loss of $4.6 million for the quarter. Operating expenses came in at $4.2 million compared to $5.4 million in the first quarter of the prior year. So very similar to a lot of these other operators, but they're really taking an active stance on cost control and bringing their operating costs down. Gross margin was negative 13%, which is a little bit concerning, but compared to Q1 of last year, it's actually a 5% improvement. And overall, they reported an operating loss of $5.7 million compared to an operating loss of $7.1 in Q1 of 2020. So moving in the right direction, but obviously still some work to be done. Now this paragraph here is really interesting. So I'm going to read this out. This is from their CEO, Mark Ainsworth. So recent harvests have begun to exceed pre-stress yields, which is encouraging for Q2 and beyond. But revenue in the current quarter continued to be impacted by lower yields experienced from cultivation as a result of plant stress from the wildfires and extreme temperatures in the late summer. So this is what we mentioned on that greenhouse slide here, you guys. Some of the external environmental factors in California actually caused these plants to get stressed. And when plants are stressed out, they don't grow as well. And ultimately, they don't produce as much flower or yield per plant. So that was a problem for this company. And that's definitely something to consider if you are looking to invest in a cultivator because they are very dependent on external factors. Now, Mark goes on to say, we enter the new quarter with confidence that our greatest challenges are now behind us. While we saw improvements in revenue year over year, the results showcased in this quarter still reflect the headwinds we encountered in 2020. We are seeing promising results from the sales of the recently acquired Lowell Herb Co. branded products. We also exited the first quarter with a return to healthy cultivation yields, meeting or exceeding the levels we experienced in the middle of last year. So their plants have now returned to these pre-stress outputs, but time will tell and we'll see if this summer continues to be hot and have a ton of wildfire activity. It may cause more similar issues for Lowell Farms in this fiscal year. So scrolling down here, guys, I wanted to call out a few specific points in relation to cultivation quality and efficiency. So number one is their significant increase in year over year operating rooms and nursery room. So in this most recent quarter of 2021, they were operating 29 flowering rooms representing 145,000 square feet and 9 nursery rooms representing 45,000 square feet. Now that compares to 8 flowering rooms in 2020 and only 2 nursery rooms, which represented 40,000 square feet and 10,000 square feet respectively. They've harvested 36 total rooms in Q1 of 2021 compared to only 12 rooms in 2020, so 3 times the number of rooms being harvested in quarter. They've reduced their average turnaround time for a flowering room by 25% from 100 plus days in 2020 to now 72 days in Q1. So they're harvesting more rooms at a faster pace. They've now completed their electrical, mechanical, and environmental upgrades at the facility, and they're now just awaiting final approval from the county. They brought online what they're calling the Clone Dome, which is one of their new nurseries, and they continue to expand their strain portfolio, and they're now seeing a lot of flower coming through with high potency in excess of 20% THC. and they actually have several strains now that are 25 to 30% THC, which is extremely strong and really considered top shelf or top notch, similar to what we saw with the G-Tech brand. Now the final point I'll mention on here, in Q4, Lowell Farms commissioned an automated flower packing line, which meant an immediate 61% reduction in flower packing headcount. So this actually allows them to now double the pounds they can pack per shift from 50 to 100 pounds. So a huge boost in terms of efficiency and cost controls because they now need fewer people to operate this packing line. Now the final point I wanted to make on Lowell Farms here, you guys, we've obviously talked a lot about their focus in California, but they actually just signed a strategic licensing agreement with Ascent Wellness Holdings to bring their Lowell Smokes brand of products to Illinois and Massachusetts. So I just wanted to include this in the presentation to demonstrate that they're not solely focused on California, and they do have an open mind in terms of expanding into other states across America as opportunities present themselves. So to close things out here, you guys, as mentioned, Lowell Farms actually came to me in the form of a subscriber request. I didn't know anything about this company, and the more I learned, the more I liked what they're doing. The cultivation space definitely scares me a little bit. However, Lowell Farms seems to have a great handle on how to produce quality product at scale, which I think really differentiates them from a lot of the small or mid-sized growers. In addition to that, they have an extremely strong brand portfolio, which I think stands out head and shoulders above any of the other products that I've talked about on this channel. And they have a massive social media following of loyal repeat customers. So for me, Lowell Farms looks extremely attractive at these levels. That recent revenue stumble they saw in 2020, I think presents a very exciting buying opportunity. And as always, you guys, I'll keep you posted on if and when I do decide to take a position here, but I definitely could see myself adding Lowell Farms to my portfolio of MJ companies. I think they're very well positioned for US federal legalization, and their distribution model in California alone really sets this company up nicely for substantial growth moving forward. Now, as always, please feel free to leave a comment in the section below on what you think of this analysis and Lowell Farms in general. If you're not currently subscribed to the channel, take a second to do so. And if you haven't already smashed that like button, please do. It takes a second of your time, it's free to do, and it helps me out tremendously. On a final note here, you guys, have a great rest of your day, and thanks so much for watching.